Hi everybody. I'm so excited to show you and go over the materials that you should have received that were in your meditative drawing and prayer packet. The first thing, of course, is your Zentangle source book. And all of these Zentangles that you're going to learn in the next few weeks are in this book, as well as the ones that I covered in the last class. Feel free to learn and work on your own from this book. It's usually pretty easy to follow the directions. So some other materials that were in your packet are this Zendala Marcus Operandus, which is a free material that is offered by the folks who developed Zentangle. We'll talk about that later. Some templates, which hopefully you'll be able to cut apart before too soon. If not, hopefully you've already done that. And then we also have some papers. We have collage papers. Everybody got a hymn from an old pilgrim hymnal that I had that was falling apart, and some butterflies. Of course, you have your new Micron pen. I did not put another pencil in, but you should have a pencil, either a Zentangle pencil or any pencil will do, and a blending tool. I also put in one sheet of watercolor paper, which is the smaller of the two kinds of paper, and 2 sheets of this Bristol paper, which is like a tagboard type material. And then last but not least, your watercolor pens. And I imagine you probably needed to use a tool to unlock those very tough to open locks like I did. We'll talk more about everything in here later. So now we're going to practice our first tangle. This tangle is called Flux. And you can find that on page 58 and 59 in your Zentangle source book. If you open to that page, you can follow along with me. This is what it looks like. There are 2 variations that we're going to do of Flux that I think are interesting. This is what they look like. So set your page up with the 2 boxes so that it looks just like that. Okay, so now your pencil goes down and you can take out your pen. And we're going to do the first variation, which is on the left. And we're going to start with a shape that goes kind of like this. Almost looks like a speech bubble, doesn't it? Kind of goes around and down. And then we continue. Sometimes I imagine you could continue all doing the shapes on one side and then the shapes on the other, but I kind of like to go back and forth. So I'm going to start one on this side, going in the opposite direction. And then I'm going to go on the other side. And the other side. Another one. Oops. I think this one I'm going to have to do kind of backwards to make that work. Got to be flexible when you do Zentangle. Wasn't being mindful enough. Okay, once you get those shapes done, the next part is to do the little circles. basically the circles fill in these spaces. And what I like to do is kind of start with the biggest, what I see to be the biggest space, and put that circle in first, and then add the smaller ones. I'm going to do 2 little small ones here, just for fun. So here I see a space where I could have a circle. If I go over here, this looks like a nice space. Let's start right about there, and then fill in. I'll put one right here. Maybe a couple down here. I don't know what it is about these circles, but somehow it makes this design look very interesting and appealing. And that's basically it for this variation. I'm going to show you very quickly how to do some shading on this. So with shading, what you need to imagine is which side of your little box here do you think the light is coming in? And I'm going to imagine that the light is coming in from that direction. Okay, so if the light is coming in from that direction, that would mean that the shadows would be on the opposite side. So I'm going to put some shadow shapes, which are kind of curves. They're little curves. You notice I'm not going up to the edge. And that's because there's usually some reflected light on the other side. Something is bouncing off and reflecting. But anyway, that's a little artist trick. And I'll put some shadows over here. These are coming out to look like little smiley faces. And I'm going to show you how to use the blending tool on this. This is really kind of magical. So you use the blending tool to soften the edges. It really makes them look like they could be made out of metal or something. And you can go back and add some of these same kinds of shadows to maybe some of these orbs. I'll put a few. I don't have very much space, but I might try a little bit of softening. I'm actually going to use the tip already has some graphite on it. So I'm going to just put some of that shadow in these spaces down here. And there you go. It looks very dimensional. Okay, let's quickly do the next variation, which I think might be my favorite variation. It's a little bit of a different shape, a little more maybe leaf-like. So we start with a leaf shape like that. And this one, I don't even know how to explain how these decisions are made, but you add leaf shapes off of wherever you want, really. So we can add one there. Oops, close that up. Add one here. Now that I've got 3, I think I'll add a few more. Here's one in there. Another one here, perhaps. How about another one coming out of there? I think I would need another one here too. Hmm. Okay. Maybe one more. Oops. Maybe another one. I'm in the mood. There we go. So I've got a bunch of these leaf shapes. Now this part is the part I really like. This is sort of adding like a vein of a leaf. So you go up a little ways and then do a couple of dots like that. Kind of stop part way. And one over here. This adds a lot of interest to these shapes. And then we fill in with the bubbles. So again, I'm finding the biggest space, and then I'm going to add some smaller orbs around it. Oh, big shape right here. Big shape there. Looks pretty good. That's probably enough for now. And the shading part, again, we're going to imagine, where does the light come from? This time I'm going to have the light come from here. So that's going to make the shadows down here. So, let's see, shadow on that side. Notice I'm kind of using the side of my pencil. I'm putting shadows mostly in these kind of the lower parts of the leaves. You can see, while I'm at it, I'm gonna add a few smiley faces to some of these bigger orbs. I should have done the whole thing bigger probably, but whoa! All right, so now we use the blending tool. There we go. Blend in some of the orbs a little. Soften that. I'm going to use the graphite that's on the blending tool to just darken in some of those that would be tucked behind the leaves there, or the leaf shapes. Anyway, that's how I sort of imagine them. So there you go. This can take on any kind of a dimension, can fill an entire space. You can see I have it floating in the space, both of them. You can create a chain of these, either one of these, and I think they're quite beautiful. The next one we're going to do is called Tipple, and we may have talked about this one before, or I know I've used it for a long time, but I don't think I taught it last time. This is kind of what it looks like. It's basically this part, but we're going to do a little variation on that, and I'll quickly show you how to do it. So after you draw your box, I'd like you to take your pencil and from corner to corner, make a little pod shape. And We don't usually do things first in pencil, but since this is a little tricky, I was going to allow you to do that and then go over it with your pen. And then we're going to do a little aura to that. I'm going to do it on the inside, just getting pretty close to that. I'm going to turn this, and I always forget to remind you that you can turn whatever surface you're working on, you can turn it to a direction that works best for your drawing hand. There we go. And now I'm going to start with the biggest orb, and I'm going to do that in the center. And rather than making a complete circle, I'm going to kind of make it look a little bit like it's going underneath this shape here. And I'm going to do the same thing here. This is the little variation part, just so that it looks like it's going underneath a little bit. And what it kind of looks like is, well, it looks like peas in a pod. There we go. And now I'm going to maybe I make a little bit of a line here, a string line. And I'm going to fill this space with the traditional tipple, which really is just lots of nice orbs. I'm going to start with some big ones, and I'm just going to kind of spread them around. And maybe a few medium ones. And then I'm going to start kind of filling in. And as we get these little spaces that can be filled with tiny orb bubbles, it's kind of fun. I think varying the shapes and sizes is what makes this one work. You can see I'm making them disappear off the edge as well. So you kind of get the idea. I am not going to finish this, but I am going to show you that when you get pretty filled in, it's what makes this really beautiful is to fill in those little triangles and small spaces in between with your pen, making them really black and dark, and makes the orbs really pop. And then the last thing I'm going to show you is shading on this one. So again, we're going to think about the light source. So I'm thinking we'll have the light source come from this direction, so the shadows are going to be on the opposite side of these orbs. And they're kind of like smiley faces, or not faces, they're just smiles. And you see I'm not being very fussy with these. The drawing of this, I'm getting them just in the right place. I'll even do some down here. And then take the blending tool. Look at how dimensional it gets. Softening the edges. The other thing, of course, in the pot, I could have done it earlier, is to fill in these spaces with your pen. And now that really looks like peas in a pod. So what I've tried to show you here is really the basic tipple, but also just some other things that you can do with these orbs, and containing them in shapes like this. This one has a very organic feeling to it, and I kind of enjoy it. There you go. That's tipple. Okay, now we're going to talk about the butterfly project that I mentioned last week. I'm going to show you how to use these watercolor pens, though there's not much to it, and I hopefully you've already tried it a little bit. This was the one I did last week, where I traced those butterflies, just like the ones that I sent in the packet for everyone. So that's one way of doing it. And you can also, if you feel like it, just draw your own butterfly. And that's what I did for this demonstration. I just did an imaginary butterfly, kind of fanciful. So the first thing I just want to point out here is that I didn't do any shading except for around the outside of the butterfly to make it look like it lifts off the page. That was very easy. I just went all the way around both the wings and the body. I also did a little shading on this second pair of wings to make that look like they were underneath this pair. So that's the only shading I did on this one. The other thing, I wanted to include this variation of bridges or halibah that looks kind of like pine needles. That was inspired by Eliana's photograph, and I wanted this to be dark in the background, and I used the watercolor pen actually to fill in all that black, because it went a lot faster than doing it with the micron pen. So that's just a tip. Okay, so the next thing, you'll find a scrap of paper in the materials that I gave everyone. This is watercolor paper, so it's a scrap to just practice on and test your colors, because they may be a little bit different than what they appear to be, a little darker, a little lighter. So it's always a good idea to have a test strip. Then the other advice I have for you, we're just going to color in the butterfly, is to choose 3 colors, I would say. Limit it maybe to 3 colors, but you know, anything goes, so there are no rules here. My thinking was to either choose 3 warm colors or 3 cool colors, because I thought that might just work better for this butterfly, and I decided to go with the cool colors here. So we're just going to test them out a little bit, take the cap off, and just sort of see how they work. You can see that your watercolor pen comes to a nice fine point, so you can really change the width of it by the pressure that you apply. You can also fill in shapes by kind of painting back and forth like that. So there's a lot of things you can do. It'd be good to practice either on the watercolor paper or on any kind of paper. Here's my other color. I'm going to kind of put it right next to it and see how that looks. I do like that combination because they're kind of equal intensity and value. And then I'm going to just try this one, which is also nice and intense, but it's a little bit lighter. So I think I like this palette, and I'm going to go for it. So I think I'll start with, it doesn't really matter. I think I'm going to go here. I'm just going to color this entire orb in with this. And since butterflies are symmetrical, I'm going to do the same thing on the other side. I think I'm going to bring that down here too. You can see it's pretty easy to stay in the lines with these watercolor pens. And we'll close that up for now. I think this color, if I remember which one this is, yeah. I think I'm going to try that on, try that in here. And I'm going to fill this whole butterfly wing in with this color. So there you go. In the end, I decided to try to use another color because it needed to be brightened up a little bit. So I picked a couple of greens to try out there. So it's very easy to use your watercolor pens. I hope that you experiment on your own. Use scrap paper to just make marks and see how it goes. We'll do more with these later on. Enjoy and thank you.